Nigeria and the rest of Nigeria met in Ghana. We tried to resolve Nigeria's political tension. We'll talk about that. Then we'll look at the signing of the instrument of surrender by Biafran leaders led by General Philip Effiong on the 12th of January in Port Harcourt. And that was in 1970, which put the 30-month of blockade, otherwise known as the Nigerian Civil War, to an end. We'll also look at the speeches made by Gowon. We'll play them on air, but not today. When that time comes, the speech is made by General Gowon and Philip Effiong. And before the war was, the instrument of surrender was signed on the 12th of January 1970, but Gowon, the Nigeria's head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, accepted the instrument of surrender in Lagos on the 15th of January 1970. So we'll look at all that and look at the speeches they made. And we'll look at General Gowon's infamous no victory, no vanquish speech. We'll look at it. Then we'll also look at the January 15, 1966 military rebellion. Now some group of young military officers, in 4 major regional cities across Nigeria, decided to truncate a democratically elected government. And we'll look at the issues, all the issues that happened after independence that led to the military taking over government. Then in January, internationally, we'll look at the Irish Church War of 1976. That's an interesting story. The Irish Church War, bitter war between Catholics and Protestants in Ireland that resulted to number of deaths and destruction of properties worth millions of pounds. We'll look at that. Then we'll also look at the murder, the 17th Jan, for the periods from 1054 to 1400, and from Liu Dynasty. Yes, Liu Dynasty. Beating British subjects from participating in the slave trade. The promotion of anti-slavery and British trading interests was a key aspect of the British rhetoric that led to colonization. During this time, also known as the Scramble for Africa, European countries sought to establish territorial claims on the African continent and secure access to valuable natural resources. The British conquest of Nigeria began on December 26, 1851, with the endorsement of the influential Lord Palmerston, the British Foreign Secretary. A bombardment of Lagos was carried out to unseat the ruling Oba Kosoko. We have told you about this earlier on the show. There was hope that replacing Kosoko with British ally Oba Akitoye would stabilize the region for the expansion of British interests. On 1st January 1852, a treaty was signed between Great Britain and Lagos. Unfortunately, over the next several years, Akitoye and his successor, Oba Dosumu, were unable to bring the stability to the region that the British had hoped for. And on 6 August 1861, Lagos was annexed as a British colony under the direct political control of a British governor through the Lagos Treaty of Cession. The colonization of Nigeria had officially begun. From Lagos, the British made their way inland, slowly bringing the rest of Yoruba land under British rule, applying force when necessary. Among the British trading companies whose activities had far-reaching consequences for Nigeria was the United Africa Company, founded by George Goldie in 1879. The 1886 Goldie's Consortium was chartered by the British government as the Royal Niger Company and granted broad concessionary powers in all territory of the basin of the Niger. In 1894, the territory was redesignated the Niger Coast Protectorate and was expanded to include the region from Calabar to Lagos Colony and Protectorate, including the hinterland and northward up the Niger River as far as Lokoja, the headquarters of the Royal Niger Company. In the Times of London article published on January 8, 1897, British journalist Flora Shaw suggested the name Nigeria, deriving it from the Niger River, to describe the region held by the Niger Royal Company territories and the Southern Protectorate. Following the later conquest of Sokoto and Kano, this name was extended to the northern region. From 1894 to 1899, the Royal Niger Company interfered in the territory along the Niger and the Benue and negotiated treaties with Sokoto, Gwandu, and Nupe that were interpreted as guaranteeing exclusive access to trade in return for the payment of annual tribute. Although treaties were signed with the rulers as far north as Sokoto by 1885, actual British control was confined to the coastal areas and the immediate vicinity of Lokoja until 1900s. The Royal Niger Company had access to the territory from Lokoja extending along the Niger and Benue rivers above their confluence, but there was no effective control even after punitive expeditions against Bida and Ilorin in 1897. The clear intent was to occupy the Sokoto Caliphate, but for the purpose, the Royal Niger Company was not deemed to be a sufficient instrument of imperialism. Consequently, on the 31st of December 1899, Britain terminated the charter of the company, providing compensation and retention of valuable mineral rights. It is at this point that Lord Frederick Lugard arrived on the scene. During his 6-year tenure as High Commissioner, Lord Frederick Lugard was occupied with transforming the commercial sphere of influence inherited from the Royal Niger Company into a viable territorial unit under effective British political control. His objective was to conquer the entire region and to obtain recognition of the British Protectorate by its indigenous rulers, especially the Fulani emirs of the Sokoto Caliphate. Lugard's campaign systematically subdued local resistance, using armed force when diplomatic measures failed. Borno capitulated without a fight, but in 1903, Lugard's Royal West African Armed Forces mounted assaults on Kano and Sokoto. By 27 July 1903, the mighty caliphate founded by Usman Danfodio was no more. Now, looking at the amalgamation of Nigeria, the conquest of Sokoto was the final act in setting the boundaries of the British protectorates of northern and southern Nigeria. So on the 1st of January 1914, under the direction of British colonial governor Sir Frederick Lugard, the northern and southern protectorate were amalgamated into a single entity, the colony and protectorate of Nigeria, making a significant transformation in the region's political history. Colonial rule from 1914 to 1960, Britain established and administered Nigeria primarily to serve its economic and strategic interests, which included the development of infrastructure, the imposition of political structures, and the promotion of trade, all while laying the groundwork for the future Nigerian state. In 1916, Lord Lugard formed the Nigerian Council, a consultative body that brought together 6 traditional rulers, including the Sultan of Sokoto, the Emir of Kano, and the Oba of Benin, to represent all parts of the colony. The council was promoted as a device for allowing the expression of opinions that could instruct the Governor General. Over the colonial era, several constitutions were implemented, such as the 1922 Clifford Constitution and the 1946 Richard Constitution, which introduced gradual political reforms to manage dissent and shape the political landscape. Growing Nigerian protest and demand for increased political representation and the autonomy in the later years of colonial rule spurred further constitutional reforms and contributed to the eventual push for independence. The 1922 Constitution provided Nigerians with the chance to elect a handful of representatives to the Legislative Council. The principal figure in the political activity that ensued was Herbert Macaulay, often referred to as the father of Nigerian nationalism. He arose political awareness through his newspaper, the Lagos Daily News. He also led the Nigerian National Democratic Party, the NNDP, which dominated elections in Lagos from its founding in 1922 until the ascendancy of the National Youth Movement, which was an offshoot. Yes, the National Youth Movement was an offshoot of the Lagos Youth Movement, and it started officially in 1938. Macaulay's political platform called for economic and educational development, Africanization of the civil service, and self-government for Lagos. The National Youth Movement used national rhetoric to agitate for improvements in education. The movement brought to public notice a long list of future leaders, including H.O. Davies and Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. By 1938, the National Youth Movement was agitating for dominion status within the British Commonwealth of Nations, so that Nigeria will have the same status as Canada and Australia. In elections that year, the National Youth Movement ended the domination of the NNDP in the Legislative Council and worked to establish a national network of affiliates. The Northern People's Congress was organized in the late 1940s by a small group of Western-educated Northern Nigerians. They had obtained the assent of the MS to form a political party to counterbalance the activities of the Southern-based parties. A group that included Alhaji Abubakar Tafawa Balewa and Aminu Kanu. It represented a substantial element of reformism in the North. The most powerful figure in the party was Ahmadu Bello, the Sardauna of Sokoto. In preparation for the independence of Nigeria from the British Empire, a national planning committee was established, which set a competition to select a national flag in 1958. In 1959, out of almost 3,000 entries, Michael Taiwo Akinkumi won the competition with an equal green-white-green with a 16-ray red quarter sun on the white stripe. After acceptance, the committee removed the red quarter sun. So Nigeria became a sovereign nation within the Commonwealth of Nations, lowering the Union Jack and raising its own green-white-green flag on the first day of October 1960. The celebrations, which included Princess Alexandra representing the Queen and Prime Minister Tafawa Balewa taking the instrument of independence, were a moment of jubilation and the birth of a new independent nation. So this is looking at the formative years of Nigeria. So the number to call, we're going to open our lines. The number to call is 080-6464-1536. That's the number again, 080-6464-1536. Please, you could make your contribution. Hello, good morning. Your name and where you're calling from. Are you Garba from Otonkon Road?
Yes, it's me, Mr. President.
Please carry on. I'm fine.
Honestly speaking, the issues in perspective has shown us clearly the process through which Nigeria of today was being formed. When you look at the indirect rule system by Frederick Lugard from 1900 to 1940, before Nigeria was amalgamated, coming together, where we have the northern protectorate, we have the southern and the western protectorate. Very interesting. Going further, you are also add up to the issue of the pre-colonial societies. We have the outer pre-colonial society, which is centralized. When we have the Yoruba pre-colonial society, which is semi-centralized. Then we have that of the Igbo, which is decentralized in nature. Because when you look at the outer pre-colonial, what goes on the emirate system. So we have chiefs, we have village heads, and then so on and so forth. Then going by the way of us, the colonial societies, we have the Olua, we have the Arik account for, to mention but a few. Then we have that of the people which reflect the age group, and then some others, I forgot their name anyway. But now we tell you, these are all processes that were seamless before the creation of Nigeria. So we must appreciate Nigeria, looking back at history, what has said. If you look at the current constitutional changes we are talking about, we've had the Freeport Constitution of 1922, which brought about the electric principle. Are you getting me?
Yes.
And then we will also have the written Constitution of 1946. The extension, we have the Masterton Constitution of 1953, I think so, if I'm not mistaken. So we must appreciate the fact that, yes, I'd like to say something here with respect to what I've said earlier on. Nigeria is not a neutral state. I'm calling on the defending Nigerians to change the narrative of saying Nigeria is a neutral state. If Nigeria is a neutral state, I wouldn't have been calling you, speaking to you on phone while you are in the studio, because the whole thing is doing anarchy. So Nigeria is drifting into a failed state, but not just a failed state, with the indices we have on ground. But we are hoping that as time goes on, things will change and then we'll have a better country. God bless Nigeria and God bless President Mbum.
Thank you very much, Aliu Garba, for your incisive contribution. Thanks very much, Aliu Garba. Yeah. The number to call is 080-6464-153. So you call to make your contributions. We always recommend books for you to read. And as I will always say, parents should encourage their children to study. And as I will always say again, if you want to know about Nigeria, you must study the Nigerian story. Books to read of Nigerian colonialism. Please, I'm personally recommending these books. Try and get them. Understanding Colonial Nigeria by Toyin Falola. Understanding Colonial Nigeria by Toyin Falola. Get these books, read them, and parents, you could also get these books for your kids. So children are not too small to read political books. Please, it will help them and develop them faster. Then this other one, British colonization of northern Nigeria between 1897 and 1914, a reinterpretation of colonial sources. This is by Mahmoud Tokor and Michael Watts. These are the two authors. This work is jointly authored. So try and get this book. Another one I'm going to recommend, which I've talked about here before, is What Britain Did to Nigeria by Mark Solium. Try and get the book. I even have a copy of that book. Hello, good morning. Okay. Number to call is 080-6464-1536. For those of you following us on social media, you can follow us on Facebook, Ferdinand Mbum. That's my personal Facebook page. You can follow us also on History Desk TV on Facebook. Then on TikTok, on X, on Instagram, History Desk TV. You can follow us, and they say they were here for our own good. Did we invite them to be here for our own good? That's the question. Did we invite them to be here? We didn't invite the British. They came on their own. They forced their way into us just to get our resources to help their nation, because they know that Africa is richer when it comes to resources. Africa is richer than the entire world put together. You can quote me anywhere. Yes. Then now the UK had to take loan when money was no longer available. The UK had to take loan to accomplish its World War II programs. The Anglo-American Loan Agreement was a post-World War II loan made to the United Kingdom by the United States of America on 15 July 1946, enabling its battered economy to keep afloat. The loan was negotiated by British economist John Maynard Keynes and American diplomat William Clayton. Problems arose on the American side, with many in Congress reluctant and with sharp differences between the Treasury and State Departments. The loan was for $3.75 billion at about $57 billion in 2015 at a low 2% interest rate. Canada loaned that additional $1.19 billion. The British economy in 1947 was hurt by a provision that called for convertibility into dollars for the wartime sterling balances the British had borrowed from India and others. But by 1948, Marshall Plan money was flowing that did not have to be repaid. The entire loan was paid off in 2006 after it was extended for 6 years. So these are part of the suffering, part of the sacrifices nations paid, and some nations paid to accomplish the wartime programs. Yeah, we told you earlier about the Ming Army and how they began their withdrawal from Hanau, ultimately putting an end to the fourth Chinese domination of Dai Viet. At least you already know that Vietnam was formerly known as Dai Viet. But later on it was changed to Vietnam. And we told you this from a couple of days back, I think last week, on 29 December 1940. As a fallout of World War II, Nazi Germany unleashed a firebombing campaign on the city of London in what is today known as the Second Great Fire of London in England, killing almost 200 civilians. Second Great Fire of London was one of the most destructive air raids inflicted by Nazi Germany on Great Britain during World War II. The Luftwaffe raid caused fires over an area greater than that of the Great Fire of London in 1666, leading one American correspondent to say in a cable to his office that the Second Great Fire of London has begun. Fires began by the raid included an incendiary bomb that broke through the dome of St. Paul's Cathedral, which was being guarded by a fire watch team at the behest of Prime Minister Winston Churchill. On the night of 29th December 1940, approximately 100,000 bombs fell on the city. The Germans dispatched 136 bombers to the city. Fewer incendiaries were dropped than in the raids of 15 November or 8 December. The raid was focused on part of the city that contained many non-residential buildings such as churches, offices, and warehouses. Many of these were locked and were not covered by the fire watchers, which applied to places of work with at least 30 employees, warehouses with an area of 50,000 cubic feet, and sawmills or timber yards with more than 50,000 cubic feet of timber. Incendiary bombs were the main armament that night. These are some of the issues of 29th December internationally. Well, we are going on a short break. And when we come back, we'll begin to look at the background issues that led to the first Nigerian military coup of 15 January 1966. We'll start looking at the background issues, the problems, what led to what. So please stay with us, don't go nowhere. We are coming back after this short timeout.
Politics.
Yeah, I don't want this thing for summer. One of summer promo. You give them, yes.
Yeah. The national debates.
What's in the name of us?
Just breeze of summer, no see.
Mbum Ferdinand. On Rhythm 93.7 Jaws. Morning clarity, Monday through Wednesday, 9 a.m. Putting the news in context.
Don't do that too.
No. No, sir.
What's in the name, sir?
It's the last time you
Half.
did
Yeah?
Can you access it from your...
that.
It's here now.
Last Wednesday, no play. I say, no, so last one, no plan. No plan again today.
No,
Check that.
they for inform. This song for me.
Remember this song?
Yes, now.
Okay.
Song you go to now.
Mm.
I want to know.
Get that way NTA be use am sef.
Yes.
NTA be use am. Remember?
Yes,
NTA use am.
they use am for their opening, their news.
Yeah. Yes.
This one.
Yes.
Now you show.
Yeah.
There's no laptop.
That was, remember the NTA this thing, where they do opening montage in this song, where they go show Nigerian Army there, the march back.
Make a play about. Now this.
Two heads are better than one. Not when you follow Chris person or.
Osama, it depends on who they crazy.
Tegolo, will you shut up there? I don't want to take this rubbish from you this time. Akunolu Entertainment presents Rhythm of Laughter 15 years anniversary. The Thanksgiving.
Yes, so 15 years, not be big, so. You are too faithful to hear me. You are too faithful to disappoint me.
Oh my God, now which kind of picking be this? Now so they sing and write this song, get anointing. Tegolo, fam inside the studio. I don't want to get it from you again. Featuring Senator, Funny Bone, MC Shakara, Nedo Alaji Musa. I said, I don't want you to talk inside the studio again. Oswald, are you a fool?
I'm not a fool, sir.
You are a fool.
I'm not a fool, sir.
Shut up.
I will not shut up, sir. I'm Tegolo. I have integrity, sir.
Oh, so you have integrity. You will hear from your mother. Marcia and I'll tell that this show. Cook. So which kind of picking with this? People they pop picking. All you can know what my sister born. You stop that. Damn the humorous. Mercy Prosper. Amadan. MC Mitty. MC Freshborn. Prayer Point. Chapirons. Elejo. Cambezino. MC Epero. Yaski. MC Askilo. Amaji. MC Lakasera. Igwebo. And Tuke. Press session. Led by Femi Jeremiah Koka. DJ on the mix of Jamie. DJ Kibra. Date. Sunday 11th January 2026. This Palace Trophy Doors. Time 2 p.m. sharp. Get entrance. Regular 5,000. Online at seller.com. At the venue 7,000. For VIP and double bookings, call 070-544-36626. Tegolo, who asked you? Aproko, you talk too much.
This show is powered by J1149 FM, sponsored by Nasco Conflicts, Maxi Taste Shawarma, Law Orders Limited, Ellipse International Limited, supported by Dr. Fish, Gagalicious Food and Events, DG Expression, Janice Kitchen, Valada Hotel, UGC Transport Services, Magdi Beaches, Miss Palace, Jos Metropolitan Development Board, JMDB, Wavelength Graphic Solutions Limited, Josh's Creation, Pepsar, Plateau Express, Plateau State Internal Revenue Service, PSIRS, Stanel Chop 1 Chop 2 Bread, Tonak TV, Dreams Nightclub, Amechi EA Prime Events, Mr. R Clothing, Beautiful Bride, The Point Hotel, Chatel Hotel, Mackenzie Trees, Joel X Construction.
Freedom of Laughter 15.0.
Osama, you know how to. You know we can celebrate 15 years. How many years you give self?
Which can see finish with this? What's it cost? How you cost my age? You should get out of this studio. Get out here. Show what senior you. Nonsense.
70 years old man. Yeah, welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Issues in Perspective. And a lot of interesting things to talk about. We're looking at the background now. We're looking at background into January. I know one of the most interesting issues in our history as a nation. Some of the most interesting events happened in January. The end of the Nigeria Civil War happened in January of 1970, and January 15 and January 12, important dates for the Nigerian Civil War. By January 12, General Philip Effiong signed the Instrument of Surrender in Port Harcourt at the headquarters of the 3rd Marine Commando. Then he was transported with some Biafran leaders to Lagos to meet the Supreme Commander, General Yakubu Gowon, who accepted the Instrument of surrender on the 15th of January effectively putting an end to the Nigeria Civil War. That's 15th of January 1970. Then also on the 15th of January, some group of young military officers, absolutely dissatisfied with the political happenings in Nigeria, decided to take the laws into their hands by truncating a democratically elected government and ushered in a military rule. So that is the background we are now looking at. The January 15, 1966 military coup in Nigeria happened because of corruption by government officials. The rigged federal election of 1964, the Western Nigerian crisis of 1965, the Joseph Taka uprising, or if you like, you can call it the Middle Belt national agitation at the time, the domino effect from coups outside Nigeria, and personal ambition of certain persons who joined the army for the sole purpose of taking over government by use of force. In its simplest terms, coup d'etat can be defined as an unconstitutional takeover of an incumbent government, especially by the armed forces. Coup d'etat is more often than not treated with scorn in the international community, perhaps because it is believed that military in politics is an aberration, which I want to agree with as well. In Nigeria, this central disapproval of military rule notwithstanding has witnessed several coups and counter-coups, starting from January 15, 1966, when the military made its debut in the politics of the country. The coup toppled the coalition government of Northern People's Congress, led by Sir Ahmadu Bello, and the National Congress of Nigerian Citizens, NCNC, led by Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. Though the deputy leader of the NPC, Alhaji Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, was the Prime Minister of the Federation, while the NCNC leader, Dr. Azikiwe, was president. Now, looking at the retinue of issues that brought about the end of the First Republic. The First Republic came into effect in 1963, but Nigeria's independence was in 1960, 1st of October 1960. We'll look at the census crisis. Let's look at the census crisis first of 1962. The first post-independence Nigerian headcount occurred in 1962 that put Nigeria population at 45.26 million. At the end of the exercise, northern Nigeria was 22.01 million, while the south was 23.25 million. Southern hopes of reapportionment of legislative seats were buoyed by the results. When this result was presented to the Prime Minister of the Federation, Alhaji Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, who was a Northerner, he rejected the result outrightly. Abubakar saw no reason why southern Nigeria should be more populated than the north. He promptly fired the British representative J.J. Warren, who was in charge of the census, and usurped the position. He then called for 1963 census. Following the recount, he announced that Northerners were undercounted by a whopping 8.5 million. The nation's population was reported to be 60.5 million, a figure which the census officials believed to be impossibly high. The figure was scaled down to 55.66 million. With this new addition, the northern figure ballooned to 31 million, and this result was deemed acceptable by the Prime Minister. The South did not waste time disputing the new figures. Following a little doctoring, the North was finally put at 29.8 million, a little less than the 31 million attained previously in the recount, while the South was reduced to 25.9 million. In the recount, the East, Midwest, and Lagos remained virtually where they were in the 1962 census, at 12.4 million, 2.5 million, and 0.7 million respectively. The West increased from 7.8 million in 1962 to 10.3 million in 1963. The figures were rejected outrightly by both the premiers of the Eastern region and the Midwest, Dr. Michael Okpara and Dennis Osadebe respectively. Okpara sued for the nullification of the census figures, but his suit was dismissed. Chief Ladoke Akintola, whose party was in alliance with Abubakar Tafawa Balewa's party, accepted the figures. Not surprisingly, therefore, the West, like its political partner the North, had a sizable increase. This same 1963 census figure is one of the retinue of reasons that led to the election controversy in the West in 1965. The aftermath of those doctored figures is also one of the reasons that led to the crisis in the West and eventually the first military rebellion. Because of the selfish and win at all cost attitude figures. Because of this selfish and win at all cost attitude, figures that can never be replicated by any two persons are being thrown about everywhere. In spite of its known flaws, the 1963 national census figures have been continuously used by local and international experts in making economic, political, and social welfare projections for the country. It is therefore not shocking to have power and telephone lines that are forever overloaded because no one knows how many people they are serving. The passion for doctored figures is stronger now than before because the higher a state is in population, the more revenue allocation is received from the federal government. This means that those at the helm of affairs must make sure that their states and ethnic groups are always higher in number to be able to receive the lion's share of the national cake. Apart from the oil revenue, with this posture, they can justify their dominance in military, political positions, contract awards, and the rest. The end result is that the country does not have a population figure that is worth the paper it is written on. Now let's look at corruption, because it was given as one of the reasons for the military takeover in 1966. Some of the reasons given by the army for taking over government of the First Republic include brazen corruption by government officials. Indeed, there were several cases of financial misappropriations in the First Republic Nigeria. For instance, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe was investigated by Foster Sultan Tribunal and found guilty of using his official power to finance his distressed African Continental Bank, the ACB. In Western Region, the Coca Commission of 1962 found Chief Obafemi Awolowo, the first premier of the Western Region, guilty of financial mismanagement within the board of the Western Regional Marketing Agency. There are cases of other First Republic government officials who looted public funds with reckless impunity. K.O. Mbadiwe, the Minister of Aviation, flaunted his wealth by building a palace in his hometown. When asked where he had gotten the money to build such a mansion, Mbadiwe replied, from sources unknown and known. Chief Festus Okotiebo, the First Republic Federal Minister for Finance, in a reply to charges of corruption went biblical, saying that to those that have, more shall be given. From those that do not have, shall be taken even the little they have. He was notorious for flamboyant and weird wardrobe, as virtually all his clothes trailed several years behind him wherever he moved. Of a similar wardrobe was the Sardana of Sokoto and the Premier of Northern Region, Sir Ahmadu Bello, whose wardrobe was one of the most elaborate in the world at the time. Furthermore, a report from the inquiry into the corruption practices at the Nigeria Port Authority and other operations of the First Republic by the succeeding Major General Aguiyi-Ironsi military government revealed that a number of ministers, including Okotiebo, Ribadu, Njoku, had formed companies and used their influence to secure contracts. K.O. Mbadiwe was reported to have gone to the extent of securing a contract for a non-registered company. The jubilant Nigerians following the news of the coup pointed the fact that the coup was a welcome development. That was a known fact at the time. Now let's look at the Middle Belt agitations of early 1960. Another reason that led to the army takeover of government on 15 January 1960 was the outbreak of the Joseph Taka uprising, otherwise known as the Tiv disturbances of 1960 to 1964, or if you like, you can call it the Middle Belt agitations. These retinue of crises were among the most serious internal conflicts of Nigeria's First Republic. Concentrated in the Benue Valley, these uprisings represented a powerful expression of minority frustration within the northern region of Nigeria. Rooted in grievances over land use, taxation, and the imposition of unpopular administrative systems, the Tiv revolt revealed the deeper contradictions of colonial legacies and regional politics. Although government security measures eventually restored order, they did so through coercion rather than reform. The result was a lasting sense of alienation that shaped political consciousness across the Middle Belt region and influenced Nigeria's later federal restructuring. The Tiv and agrarian people of the Benue Valley, historically organized through kingship-based, decentralized social structures rather than hereditary chieftaincies. Under British indirect rule, colonial officers sought to fit the Tiv into the standard model of native authority governance by appointing warrant chiefs. These appointments disrupted Tiv traditions and provoked deep resentment as they introduced new taxes, forced labor, and judicial powers seen as alien to local customs. By independence in 1960, the Northern People's Congress dominated regional politics. Tiv communities, though numerous, were classified as a minority within the northern region and found themselves largely excluded from access to power and resources. The United Middle Belt Congress, UMBC, founded by Joseph Sawan Taka, emerged as the political platform for Middle Belt minorities seeking greater autonomy and recognition. The UMBC's alliance with the southern opposition parties, especially the Action Group, gave the Middle Belt movement national visibility. Yet this cooperation also heightened tension with the NPC, which viewed UMBC activism as subversive and divisive. Within the land of Tiv, this political rivalry merged with long-standing social and economic grievances, creating the conditions for unrest. The underlying causes of Tiv resistance lay in the intersection of economic hardship and administrative injustice. Population growth had intensified land disputes, while taxation and levies enforced by the native authority were perceived as excessive and corruptly administered. Chiefs and tax collectors, often associated with the NPC, were accused of favoritism, embezzlement, and harassment. Early protests. Hello, good morning. Your name and where you're calling from?
Hello, Mr. Ferdinand. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Your name, please.
My name is Amechi. I'm calling from Rampton.
Okay, Amechi, you're very welcome to the show. Your contribution quickly.
Yes, my contribution is this. The history is just giving us about the first coup. To me, those guys are heroes to me. Why I say they are heroes to me? You can imagine the kind of corruption that was then used by people. For example, look at what the quote about Mbum Ferdinand was there. That you will collect from those, the Bible says you collect from them. What was an erroneous quotation of Bible? So the coup to my knowledge was a welcome coup. We now open our eyes to see that the corruption never started today. You can imagine the kind of the way the protest from where is far away, far back there. So to me, these soldiers that did this coup, though I'm not a soldier, I welcome them and believe they are heroes of our time. Please, thank you for keeping us educated in this manner. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Amechi. Tiv youth, sometimes operating through informal networks, began targeting the local symbols of authority, native authority offices, courts, and compounds of unpopular chiefs. The first major Tiv uprising erupted in late 1960.
Yeah. You are actually talking about the underlying causes.
Aliu Garba from Otonkon Road.
So, yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Ferdinand.
Yeah.
What I want to make to understand is that the counter on cause corruption did not really start since the inception of democracy.
No, our grandparents started corruption.
We don't understand this. You see, that's why the issue in perspective are really abuse with change of events as they unfold, right from hitherto. So now that's past and the present event. Okay, Mr. President, I can remember some kind of things when going through when conducting my research in terms of 1966. I was being skeptical about the promotion excess. During corruption, which has taken the fabric of our society, is what gives rise to the coup. But I wanted to shed more light on this. I don't know whether I'm getting it correctly. Based on the promotion exercise. No one was talking about the remote countries, the remote countries
Yes.
of the 1966, first January 1966, military coup d'etat. By extension, the civil war that erupted this country was we were not born, but they haven't experienced, and that's why we are saying that those agricultors of any kind should not carry on because there is no real provision for the referendum in the Nigerian constitution, let alone have a state in a state. You can't have a parallel government, a state in a state. I think we get that aside. In the state of crisis of 1962, it's surrounded by so many controversies. There has never been a true national center. I don't think there will be a true national center in this country. And unless we put some things aside, also the issue of religion, ethnicity, and tribalism. When you are counting Nigerians, doing head count, doing your elimination, not take it, do it at the back of your mind that you are counting Nigerians, not that you are counting Northerners, how many are Northerners, how many are Westerners, how many are Southerners. That was something like this when the population census. Because when they believe that the Northerners have the numbers, but yes, the other censorship felt also that they are being treated. How can these people count with their trucks, their properties, and everything, and come and give us concocted figures? So it is like that cannot be the one of us who wanted conducted. The exception, the one Buhari has a mark and benchmark, we won't put our center of money for this national census. So I think national census at this point in time will be exercise sensitivity until and unless we forget about the religion, ethnicity, and northern, southern dichotomy. Let's see Nigeria as a sovereign nation, as an indivisible entity with people from different ethnic nationalities coming together to form the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aliu Garba.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. The first major civil crisis erupted in late 1960, only months after Nigeria's independence. Demonstrations against tax collection and perceived administrative injustice quickly spread across several thief divisions. Protesters attacked government buildings and resisted police intervention. The Northern Regional Government responded with police crackdown, supported by local constabulary units. Contemporary records, such as the Wheeling Commission reports and regional archives, indicate extensive arrests and property destruction. Casualty figures remain uncertain, while official reports suggested limited fatalities. Later studies, including those by Bem Audu and Toyin Falola, imply that the death toll was significantly higher. The crisis revealed that independence had not fundamentally altered the structures of power in the region. The same administrative apparatus that enforced colonial control was now used to silence internal dissent. Between rebellion and repression, between 1961 and 1963, there were very violent rebellion by the Middle Belt people and equally massive repression by the NPC government from Kaduna. In the following years, attempts to restore stability produced little progress. Promises of reforms by the northern government were slow and largely superficial. Joseph Taka and several UNBC officials were arrested in 1961 and 1962 on charges of subversion and conspiracy, charges later dismissed in court. Their detention was widely seen as politically motivated and later deepened the hostility between the thief population and the regional authorities. By this period, many thieves had come to view the NPC government as a continuation of colonial domination. While overt violence subsided, resentment persisted beneath the surface, sustained by reports of arbitrary taxation, police brutality, and partisan exclusion from public employment. By early 1964, there were renewed violence and equally expanded security measures by national government, who carried out a massive crackdown against its own people. While all these were happening, the army was watching. Even when the army was used to effect this crackdown in the Middle Belt, a cross-section of the army was unhappy. The immediate context in 1964 included disputed local elections, allegations of electoral malpractice, and continuing native authority abuses. Demonstrations rapidly escalated into violent clashes, with attacks on government offices, market centers, and homes of officials accused of corruption and bias. In response, the regional government invoked emergency powers. The regional government invoked emergency powers and deployed police riot squad, later reinforced by small army contingents. Security operations in the land of Tiv resulted in widespread arrest and destruction of property. This is how much you can take. Tomorrow we'll continue with the Middle Belt agitation as one of the remote causes of the January 15 military rebellion. We'll continue the Middle Belt agitation tomorrow and talk about other issues that are potential reasons, like the Western Nigeria political crisis. We'll talk about that too. And we'll look at the domino effect from coups within Africa at the time, which is one of the issues too. Thank you very much for being part of the show today. For those of you who are not able, we are not able to take your calls, I do apologize. Tomorrow we'll try as much as possible to take your calls. The program is Issues in Perspective. If you really want to be part of the show, maybe at the level of sponsorship, you can call Ayuba on 080-3285-1135. Let me take that again, 080-3285-1135. And we have told you about our social media platforms. You can follow us, Ferdinand Mbum on Facebook, on TikTok, on X, on Instagram, History Desk TV, then on YouTube, Mbum Ferdinand. Thank you very much for being part of the show. On behalf of every member of the production crew, I remain Mbum Ferdinand, wishing you a lovely, lovely day ahead. Thank you. We're out.
Politics, power.
Well, thank